Welcome to Browns Film Breakdown. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. We are going through everything at Thursday practice, who didn't practice, who did, obviously, but also some important quotes about playing time, what's going on at the tackle position, other things around coordinators speaking. Lions offensive coordinator getting a little aggressive with a quote about the Browns run defense. All of that and more, including a fantastic interview with Matt Waldman where we talk through Quinshon Judkins and other rookies per his evaluation, as the Browns were very active and guys that Matt liked, and we want to evaluate them through 3 weeks. So let's get going with the latest Browns Film Breakdown, brought to you by Monfredi Dental. What's up, and welcome into the show. It's Jake, Browns Film Breakdown. We are here for your Friday, September 26th edition. Coming at you solo, we're going to have a pretty good guest coming up, Matt Waldman from Rookie Scouting Portfolio. We're going to talk with him, just a sort of impromptu interview that I really wanted to share with you guys, that although it's not the usual mailbag, we'll get back to that next week. I thought it was a good time to assess these rookies and talk about his expectations of these guys, where they're at according to his expectations, and dig into the details of a guy like Quinshon Judkins, how he's playing, and others, especially the guys on the offensive side of the ball. So it's well worth your time coming up here in a bit. Obviously, for now, we have plenty of things that happened around Berea today. It is a very busy time, especially on Thursdays, where you're talking to coordinators, a couple players, but really talking to the coordinators. And Tommy Rees spent a lot of time talking about specifically Joe Flacco, downfield passing game, the tackles, the pressure that's being allowed right now. If you missed it, yesterday's opening drive, which is a free, obviously, edition, but is going to be built on and discussed more in a more in-depth subscriber capacity over the coming weeks, is like this pressure rate being allowed, how the Browns aren't getting chunk plays, what they have to do to turn the corner on that ultimately, right? And, just again, how they get this offense moving in the right direction. As Tommy talked about, they had Joe in a rhythm week one. They have not been able to get him back in a rhythm the next 2 weeks, obviously tied again to how comfortable he feels in the pocket, how comfortable he feels in any form of drop back, whether 3-5-7 or off play action. That is the huge thing stopping this offense from getting moved in the right direction, right? So that is a huge part of conversation. It's obviously something the Browns are focusing on. And if you care enough about why that's happening, what has happened, go check out the opening drive from Thursday. Okay. Well worth your time. Today's opening drive on Friday usually and is digging deep on special teams, right? That's what we like to do on Fridays, looking ahead then at the next opponent, right? So again, Reese talked about Dylan Sampson's 5 snaps, said it's more of a week-to-week thing. Dylan's doing everything he's supposed to be doing. We trust him. It's just a game plan thing. And in this one, the game plan didn't call for a lot of that. I hope it flips. I'd like to see more of Dylan Sampson, although you obviously like getting Quinshon Judkins the ball. Sampson and realistic opportunity scenarios are things that they will need. So good stuff from Tommy about where the offense is, what they're trying to build, the tackle uncertainty, and how they're trying to solve that. So again, a good setup and a good conversation had there. I like what he had to say, and we'll see if they can turn the corner offensively or get back into just a little better rhythm this weekend. Grant Delpit was a topic for Denzel Ward, as he talked about. He thinks he's playing all pro football, and I think he's doing a great job, right? I think Grant's doing a really good job. And they got some guys through 3 weeks on that side of the ball that are going to get league-wide attention. I've talked about Malik Collins playing at pretty much a Pro Bowl, all-pro level through 3 weeks. We think the young guys have a chance to be some end-of-the-year award recipients. We talk about this as a part of the FanDuel look ahead, right? We could take Carson Swessinger, you could take Mason Graham, you could get those guys at pretty good rates on FanDuel's sportsbook for, the right price to put some long money on it. And I think it's got a chance to really pay off. As you know, all of those awards are narrative-driven, and if the Browns' defense continues to be as good as we think it can continue to be, then obviously it is something that could play out well for your wallet down the line, right? So exciting for those guys. Denzel also talked about how he missed practice yesterday. He was out there today. Everybody participated today at practice, which is a great thing, including Mike Hall, who we went into detail yesterday about not practicing, why he's not practicing. So obviously a good thing. Ward said he's dealing with a toe issue that popped up on Sunday, but he said he's good to go. He shouldn't be a problem, and was out there practicing. So that's good. And obviously the full participation, Shelby Harris, obviously getting out there, Mike Hall getting out there, and Ward returning is good to see, right? The big quote of the day comes from Lions offensive coordinator John Morton, who we're going to, if you missed yesterday's pod, we talked about him with Jeff Risdon from the Lions Wire about John Morton and kind of where he's been. And he was with the Lions before and left to go to Denver and be with Sean Payton. Then he's come back to take over this offense coordinator role because he gets to actually call plays here versus what happens out in Denver. But he's made an interesting quote. I mean, at least bulletin board material. We'll see what ultimately matters, because he was asked about the Browns' run defense, ranking first in the league, 57.3 yards per game allowed. And his response was along the lines of respecting the Browns, but also he says he doesn't think that the Browns have played a run game like ours, is what he said. And I believe that to be true. They have two dynamic running backs in, Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, and they run the football in a very efficient way. They very diverse in scheme. And I have talked about this through the defense film room and some other things that we saw last week. And what hurt the Browns last year is that perimeter pin pull type run game and using motion to manipulate their run fits is a way teams have caused them some trouble. And the Packers had some perimeter success. The Bengals had some success moving guys in motion and creating gap displacement. I think that's what the Lions are going to be chasing. But to be honest, think this is a great quote for the Browns getting excited about the challenge. And especially anytime a coordinator comes out with a quote like that, whether that's plucked from a longer quote or not, it is an indication of a lack of respect, right? And I don't think he means it that way, but he means he's got confidence in his guys and their ability to scheme it up. But I am sure the Browns internally are chomping at the bit to get after that one. So I'm very interested to see how that plays out, right? I think it'll be very interesting. The injury report, otherwise, like I said, everybody out there for the Browns. Conklin continues to be limited. Grant Delpit with the back continues to be limited. The knee injury for Hall is still in a limited capacity, and then the hamstring for Shelby Harris keeps him in limited capacity too. Cedric Tillman with a double label hand and hip, limited again, and Denzel Ward gets back out there limited. But they are out there. They are going through, and everybody was accounted for during the open session, right? Zach Cunningham, the linebacker for the Lions, is limited. They only had 3 DNPs, but Derek Barnes, another one of their linebackers with a knee designation, he is limited. Al-Qadim Muhammad comes back for them this practice in a limited capacity with the knee, and he says he's going to play. He's going to be fine. The one to pay attention to is Taylor Decker, who's now 2 days into a shoulder did not practice outcome. Obviously, the Lions' offensive line is the most important part of their run game locomotive, right? So if he doesn't play, that's a big loss for them, but we'll have to see how that shakes out. Otherwise, safety Daniel Thomas continued with a forearm issue, did not practice, and then Sione Vaki, the depth running back special teams player for them, didn't practice as well with a groin issue. So that's everything from the injury report updates, from player updates. A lot of good stuff from Jim Schwartz today on his guys and how they feel comfortable playing such an aggressive form of defense. On the Lions side, there is some internal concern about the way Terrion Arnold is playing, which is, nothing to not be side-eyeing for a team that likes to play so much man coverage as the Lions do. Their defensive coordinator, Kelvin Shepard, had mentioned that they're not down on him necessarily, Terrion, who's their first-round pick in 2024. But he does, and he doesn't think he's having a bad year necessarily, but there are some growing pains happening right now. Veteran Amik Robertson, who's been around the league for a little bit, the Raiders particularly, could see a bit of an increased role, but this is the development stage. Can the Browns find a couple shot plays off of that? Maybe a chance to spring a guy open, kind of maybe pick on him the way they did Cam Taylor-Britt in week 1, right? That remains to be seen. So some opportunity here for the Browns offense to get back on track. Not as much. Obviously, Aiden Hutchinson is as good as a pass rusher, right up there in the tier 1, not tier 1A like Miles is, but obviously a very good pass rusher. But the depth of that group collectively is not anywhere near as good as some of the teams the Browns have faced off the edge. So if you can, send a little focus there, find a way to block more one-on-ones and other places, give yourself a chance to get 4 routes out instead of 3, some chances to run the football, obviously, in between those guys, and then some chances maybe to push the football downfield a little bit too, despite how good we know their safety play is there between Kirby Joseph and obviously Brian Branch. But it's a good group, but both teams feel like they got an opportunity on offense to get after people. Now, let's get over, after everything there we know from Berea, over to our interview with Matt Waldman. Like I said, talking about a lot of the offensive rookies. Really what I wanted to get Matt's biggest opinion on is where things are moving for Quinshon Judkins based on early performance. And he goes deep into detail on his pre-draft of him, where he's at now, but he also has notes on Harold Fannin, Dylan Sampson, and then we spend some time on a guy he liked coming out in the draft cycle of Isaiah Bond, who has a bigger role than any of us anticipated early. So that will be it for today. We'll talk to Matt. We'll wrap up the show. Check in with us on Friday. I'm going to get with Corey Kinnan at some point and talk about things maybe for your Saturday morning podcast. deep dive on the huge slate of college football games coming. So we'll get into all of that. Come over to Browns Film Breakdown, subscribe with us. At the minimum, go to socials, go to YouTube, smash the subscribe button there. Follow us on TikTok, follow us on Instagram, follow us on X, all those platforms. Stay up to date with everything Browns Film Breakdown. But above all else, we would appreciate if you come over and join us in a subscriber capacity. I promise you it will only enhance your Browns experience, guys. Thanks for being here today. Exciting interview coming up, so stick around for our conversation with Matt Waldman. Well, the Browns haven't been in the running back market for a while. They did get in that world very heavily this year. We know Matt was on the forefront of like, hey, this Nick Chubb guy's pretty good. You should care about him when he was drafted. We've covered this in deep detail, Matt. And really what I want to do is, as we've seen, it's 3 weeks. Nothing's defined. There's a lot of evidence to gather here. But what I want to do starting here is, I believed in Quinshon. I thought he was the right pick for what they wanted to do. And I thought everything he did at the college level between Ole Miss and Ohio State translates to the league. I think he took a little heat for that. A lot of people liked Henderson more. I didn't, as far as, because again, it's Ohio football, and fans of Ohio football are mostly drawn to Ohio State guys. And it was like, did they make the wrong pick? And I don't even want to go there, Matt, because it's not really that I'm worried about. But what I love to hear, and for you to remind people of, is where you had Quinshon pre-draft and whether those pre-draft elements you think have translated in. I know it's just 2 games, but 2 exciting performances, I would think.
Yeah, I mean, Quinshon Judkins was the second running back on my board, just behind Ashton Ginty. He had a grade of 89, and I have a 100-point scale that I've been using for the past 20 years. And what that means is that he's graded on the high end of what I would call an immediate starter with a large role and learning on the go, and on the cusp of being a franchise player, a guy who could be an immediate production and leadership anchor for your team. Now, if I'm going to compare him, just to give you kind of an elevator overview, I like to use a spectrum of players stylistically of what he could become, whether it's, improbable, possible, where he is, where I think he could be very soon right now. And maybe if he doesn't play up to expectation, where he'd be. I would say if he doesn't play to the expectations I would expect, he'd still be in Isaiah Crowell territory, who was my number 1 back the year he came out, despite the fact that he was an undrafted free agent. And actually, with that class, he acquitted himself quite well, considering that fact. And then Chris Carson is where I think he can be if he just does what he's, what you would expect him to do, bare minimum, without much growth. And I would say the improbable but possible outcome is if his receiving game becomes much better and they use him as such, and then also maybe he gets a little bit stronger, and I don't think he's going to need to focus on that. But if he can get a little stronger, maybe show a little bit more on the speed department, maybe he would be like an upper middle class version of Jonathan Taylor. And I think that's, I think that's great company. You're basically talking about backs who, when they stay healthy, can be anchors to power running teams. And so when you look at him, I think fans always were going to underrate Judkins because they see speed and they play fantasy football, and they see that backs who get out in open space and who are used to get them in open space more often are the guys that are exciting and put up the big stats. So they're looking for like the instant speed guys. But I know that the people I know with NFL experience agreed with me too. People who analyze the game like you agree. He's one of the best backs in his draft, and he can deliver quality starter production in nearly every phase of the position. I mean, they underrate his explosion. So when they see him paired with Travion Henderson last year, they think, well, Henderson's fast. They don't realize that Judkins isn't slow. He's just slower by comparison. And he's got sudden change. The more important thing is sudden change of direction, quickness, and acceleration. Those are the 2 things you need. And you need to be able to have them within the eyes to see how everything develops and understand the blocking scheme. If you watch Travion Henderson, there's a reason why it's taken some weeks for him. And we don't even know if he's going to, people are hoping that based on some practice rep footage that
Yeah.
he's going to somehow get first team reps this week because Ramondre Stevenson fumbled twice. But Trevion Henderson can hit a crease. He can hit small creases and explode through them. And he runs hard, and he's a good receiver, and he's a terrific open field guy. But when you're in playing between the tackles, there are a lot of situations, especially zone plays and certain man plays, where they give you lemons. The crease isn't there, and you've got to figure out how to create something from nothing and manage the game well. And
Yeah.
I found that more often than Judkins, Trevion Henderson didn't really know where the ingredients were in the cupboard to make lemonade out of those lemons. And he would kind of self-destruct in situations where he that crease didn't open the way that he expected. Now, if it opened a little bit, he didn't need much, and that's good.
Yeah.
But Judkins in the SEC, in the Big Ten, he showed without a shadow of a doubt how to manage a football game. In the NFL, you need to be able to manage down and distance situations where the defense is going to give you a problem that you have to solve, and you have to solve it in a way that keeps the playbook open by not taking too many chances with bounce outs and cutbacks and trying to go for the home run play. He'll
Right.
hit it if it's there. He can create something and then make more happen, and then that might happen too. But he's going to also say, you know what? I'm going to keep you in a 2nd and 7 or a 2nd and 10 rather than being in a 2nd and 15 and close up your playbook. So, the power, the high end athletic ability, that's all good. And then, Jake, look at just this offense. This offense is 49% two tight ends, right?
Yeah.
So what are you inviting when you put two tight ends in an alignment?
Inviting
Heavy
some more
boxes.
guys. Yeah. Into
Yeah,
the box.
heavy boxes. So, people want a Devon A chain, but if you look at how many times he faced heavy boxes of like 0% this year.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, like, that's great that Mike McDaniel can get him into space, but that's really helping the Dolphins right now. There's more going on with them. But with Judkins, he's designed to run. His game is designed to run run with the Bulls, basically, and not get hurt and to be able to help your team. And he's one of the best right now that I've seen, at least from the metrics you can look at earning gains between 4 and 8 yards. Okay.
Yeah.
He's among the top 3 to 5 backs in terms of production. That's where he's gaining most of his yards. He's not giving you all the huge explosives that people want to see, but this offense isn't that. When Chubb was with Baker Mayfield and they played in, shotgun, and they weren't getting those heavy of those boxes, he'd give you those explosives.
Yeah.
Chubb was also a great back and give you explosives in tight boxes too, like Derrick Henry. But this kid's not quite gonna be that. But he will be good enough to move the chains for you. And when they do play 6, 7 men, neutral or favorable boxes, he's gonna give you 30 or 40-yard gains and flip the field.
Yeah. I mean, I'm all about breakaway speed. Everybody wants it. It's a great, sort of cherry on top of a profile. It's fantastic. But like, I'm more interested in how you said, Matt, how do you create when something's not there, right? Backfield chaos, a puller misses. Can you create, right? That's great. Can you find yards above expectation? Sure. But like, also when you hit the second level where at the NFL game, as things get condensed and you're not in open space, you're not relying on RPOs that put you into grass. How do you make runs that are 3 get to 6? Do you do that organically? Does that feel easy to you as a player? And it felt easy to me for him to do that at the college level. That seems to be translating as we start here. And then on top of that, he's got a pretty deadly stiff arm that he hasn't totally put on display at this level, but is another wrinkle to like, he actually did against Baltimore. I can't remember who he got. It might have been Marlon Humphrey, but he will use that and create over expectation. And you are so right when you talk about cutting the tape on of a Miami or cutting the tape on of other teams who like to live out of lighter personnel, spread formation stuff where they get themselves into 6 guys in the box. That's great. But when you do invite more bodies into that count, can you create when something gets tough in duo. And I just have been more appealing to me that he could do that. Now, what I want to close with, because I didn't want to take too much of your time, was like, he's, you come into camp late, all the elements that are tied into that, you're going to lack in two areas, and that's usually the late down stuff. How do you identify blockers at the second level and protection? And then how do you handle route concepts out of the backfield? I thought, Matt, his college blocking tape was good. I'm curious what you thought of it. Do you think he's a guy who's finding the field on third downs? And then do you eventually see him getting into route concepts a bit more and being a complete third down guy that they don't even need to take off the field if they're not inclined to do it? Because they have run into issues where, like in week 2, you're running pass pro and Dylan Sampson, love him. I want to get your quick opinion on him before we're done, but you're putting him up against Roquan Smith in the B gap, and that's not going to work. So that's where, like, somebody of Quinshon's size gives you a little more of an opportunity to hold your own. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, I agree, and he will. I think right now it's just that, things are a little rusty. He missed one block against, up the middle from a linebacker through the A gap, and then he just barely ID'd the next one and cut
Yeah,
him just
got
enough.
his
And
thigh.
yeah,
Yep.
but I would say this, like you said, that's the consequences for missing time, at least from this standpoint. I mean, overall on his tape, I thought he was a very good blocker. He squares linebackers normally well around the edge. He can shoot his hands with it, keep his head up. A lot of backs don't do that well. He gets his face into the jersey, but with his hands striking first. You always want the hands first, and he does that. And he can roll through his hips to deliver a blow. And to me, that's literally that's the sign that you really have it as a running back, that you can do what linemen do, which is to deliver that blow, use your hips to deliver force, keep your feet moving through the contact to redirect. He can give you the quick cut to blitzers up the middle. He can redirect the path of rushers. I think he can alter positions late to deliver glancing shots. We saw that we didn't want him to have to rely on that, but you could see he did, because at least when he was late to identify, everything else in the chain of what he does well fired off, which means he's prepared. He's worked on this. He can make, when he has position and he's prepared, he's timely with his cuts. He can take shots from A gap linebackers and anchor. He's going to chip box defenders. There's lapses where he's just too aggressive, but I think he generally demonstrates the right amount of violence with hits so he doesn't disrupt the teammate's position there. Double teams, he's good. Cross blitzes, he can get beaten to the punch maybe occasionally on interior gap blitzes, but these are what's usually major issues. This is more of a minor thing with him. Passing game, some of the Texas routes he runs are pretty good. I've seen him show a little bit, as a route runner that tells you there's a potential to unlock a higher level of how to bait defenders.
Yeah.
And the pass catching is good. Again, not unbelievably dynamic. Cleveland is gonna in that area of the game, but Cleveland is using heavy boxes, and they're going to use him as the carrot on play action for defenders to flock to. So you're not really looking for that. So you really won't have to take him out the field if you don't want to.
That's good to hear. It's great to hear, man. I'm excited for him. I think he just fits, like you said, and articulated well here. He fits so much of how they think about offensive football, and that gets extremely overlooked in the process of how you operate versus what you're drafting and where a guy lands on the board for some teams versus others, right? I am interested. They used Dylan Sampson pretty heavily week 1, and you know this as well as I do, Matt. And it was the same for Tillman when the Browns took him, and other guys that we've evaluated over the years. Is like how they run offense at Tennessee is so esoteric and strange that it's hard to pinpoint, nail down how these guys translate right away. Everything from their run game at Tennessee with Sampson I liked, because there's a lot of counter power stuff. They move their guy. They like to keep everything inside. But then you get to the NFL level, they're asking him to run a little more zone. They're asking him to do some things he's not necessarily comfortable with. The week 1 stuff in the pass game was very intriguing. It's obviously reeled back, even though he had a nice touchdown there from Dylan Gabriel in the left corner end zone week 2, but then they really didn't play him much of week 3. Are you inclined to think they need to play him more? I think they got to try to find some things for Dylan to do, because the pass game stuff is translated quicker, making some people miss in space. because that's what I want my guys to do, man. I know you probably feel the same way as a running back. You got to make a guy miss. He's good at making one man miss. So like his pullback is tough because it's kind of the same thing for what they're doing defensively. Like Aiden Huntington's playing really well, and you want to play him more. But Malik Collins is playing like an all-pro through 3 games. Mason Graham's really good. So your struggle there. So I just am curious if you think like where you were on Samson. I don't want you to have to go crazy here, but like where you were on Samson pre-draft and how he's translated and the role they got to try to find for him here, because I think he can play.
Oh, I think he can play too, but I just don't know if this offense is really a great fit for him right now as it is,
Yeah.
because Joe Flacco's keeping this offense afloat, and that people may look at the box score and say, I beg to differ. I'd like to see one of these rookies come in, but I think that Greg Williams' son probably did a great job somewhere along the line. I heard talking about how Joe
Yeah.
Flacco, what he does from like basically breaking the huddle until he snaps the ball is more valuable, because Cleveland would have to shrink their offense significantly
Yeah.
for these 2 rookies to play, and they would not get the run game in and out of bad plays into good plays. They would not be able to make the adjustments that they need to go from run to pass or pass to run
Yeah.
as well, and they wouldn't have as much to choose from, and defenses would know what's coming eventually. They might start strong and everybody gets excited after
Yeah.
3 or 4 weeks, and then defenses put the clamps down and go, well, they're only running this, and this, and if we do this, these guys are going to be in trouble. And suddenly now your run game's gone, and now you're just in garbage time down by 21. And Flacco's keeping this defense in position to be able to compete and win games, and then they can manage and be able to do what they need to do. And I think with Samson, that's part of the problem, is that is he going to block for you as well right now as Judkins can? Is he going to get the dirty hard yards with the variety of plays that Joe could flex to? No. But is he an intriguing player? Yeah. I mean, like, I like Justin Jackson, the Northwestern back who went
Yeah.
to the Chargers. If he didn't get hurt, we might never have heard of Austin Eckler. It's very possible. I mean, I know that sounds crazy right now, but they liked him coming out. I think he can be a little better than what Justin Jackson was. And if he went crazy and really becomes well versed in every scheme, maybe you've got a James Cook like player approaching that level of play. But right now, I mean, there's a little bit of a ways to go, like you said. I mean, he's got feel, he's smart, excellent in the pass game, he's rugged for his size. But you're right. Better gap runner, better than he is with zone plays. He doesn't really know how to press deep enough and set up where
Yeah.
he can do that yet. And that's usually the harder thing to do. He's used to fill in the blank rather than multiple choice right now. And
Right.
Cleveland definitely does more of multiple choice, enough of that to be helped. So it's a nice to have, but it's not a we need to get him in right now, just because Flacco needs that flexibility, even
Mhm.
if he's not executing post snap as well as you would like all the time. What he's doing to at least get him in position so that he can try to execute
Yeah.
is better than anybody on the step chart.
I would say too, a little bit of it is like I feel like he's a more comfortable gun runner from his eyes, his vision, and how they process gun run, and they're just not living in that world as
No.
much as they do move off of that and live in a little more of that world when Dylan's involved, because you want Dylan off the line of scrimmage, some of that stuff. We'll see. More to come, but I was curious of your thought about him. I love the comparisons. I swear, Matt, last question. You were an Isaiah Bond guy. Did you like him coming out? And
Yes.
he's been really involved
I
early here, man.
I like Bond. I like Fannin. Fannin to
Yeah.
me was Laporta all over again.
Love to hear it.
And he was my number 3 tight end in this class. And I thought the most underrated one. Everyone was off him at the combine, and I thought that
Yeah.
was ridiculous.
Yep.
The data was on par with Sam Laporta, and they play a similar game. He's a little more rugged, maybe as after the catch, not as rugged as a blocker, but
Yeah,
he's
that's fair.
sticky. He's good in
Yeah.
space.
Yeah.
As far as Bond, I liked him better than Matthew Golden, to be honest. I thought the burst, there's like the shortest way I can say it is there's a little bit of Isaac Bruce to his game if he could really fully develop it. But he's tough over the middle. He's got great explosion. I think he runs pretty good routes for a guy at this level of his game, where he shows a little subtlety. He also shows the ability to throw the ball down the field. And I think to run timing routes with the explosion that you want to see and the precision. He just needs to become a little more artful with what he does. They're going to have a problem with what they want to, if they're, to me, where's a guy they need to get on the field more, eventually it's going to be Bond and who they taking off to do that, because you want to keep Fannin on the field with those two tight end sets. I think that just makes defenses much more predictable. We know it makes defenses much more predictable. That helps Flacco, helps the run game. So you got to keep Fannin on more. And he's big in the fourth quarter. He's come up big with some big plays. So who's coming off, Judy or Tillman? And if you're going to put Bond in there, Bond to me is kind of like, he's a starter kit to be T.Y. Hilton. And T.Y. Hilton was a really good player. If he goes off the charts dedicated and becomes maniacal about his execution and play, he could approach Isaac Bruce territory.
You're talking about a guy who didn't arrive until a week before the regular season. Well, 2 weeks before, because there was the bye week in between. And they've had this kid a part of everything from the go. So there's not just hey, we see an opportunity to capitalize on a guy who got overlooked in the press. This is like, we were going to draft you if you were in the draft, and that's a player they want to be involved. They're throwing deep end breakers to him last week. They gave him a chance on a cover 2 ball that Joe just threw over his head. Like, there's something there. They want to see it. And I know that you had talked about him through the process. So it's at the very minimal, a promising start for the young man, and we'll see if it continues to grow. Man, I got it. We are going to do it. Maybe toward the middle of the year, maybe the end of the year. This is an exciting start, and I want to continue to get your opinion on these guys because, I watch your stuff. You're breaking them down all the time, and obviously covering them well. So remind people on the way out the door where they can follow you, and then everything else that comes with your work, which I think is at the top of the NFL stuff.
I appreciate it. You can find me at Matt Waldman on X. You can find me at mattwaldmanrsp.com or at footballguys.com. The RSP is a 20-year-old publication. It's one of the most purchased draft guides, independent draft guides by NFL people, according to folks like Alex Brown, who used to be the head recruiter at Ole Miss and SMU and Rice, and now he's a scout for the Atlanta Falcons. And so he knows, he's met with scouts for years, knows what they get, what they look at, what personnel people look at. So I only study 4 positions, quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end. It's a 1,200 page guide usually. Just looking at those guys, I do it in a high level of detail. You can find it at mattwaldman.com. And I have a podcast. You can hear a variety of fantasy and scouting level work that I do with a variety of people each week.
It's not phony here at all, man. It's one of the best doing it if you like the deep dive stuff. And I've talked to Matt about this in the past, focusing on some very specific positions and getting good at it. Everybody tries to do everything in the draft world now, and it's kind of impossible. So getting people who are, understand the focus and understand that stuff, but also take in season. He's breaking down tape throughout the year of what these prospects are doing and what teams are doing. And like I said, he keeps putting stuff out about the Browns, so it'll be well worth your follow if you're not already doing that. It's not like we haven't had Matt on this show several times throughout the year. So we will visit with him again, continue to follow the work, and with 2 first-round picks, Matt, we'll probably talk 3 or 4 more times throughout the process. So we appreciate it, man.
Great, Jake. Thanks so much again. It's always a pleasure.